Hi there, Steve Kaufman again here. I'm back from my ski holiday. Had a great time at Big White, mostly cross-country skiing. And I want to talk a little bit more again about Stephen Krashen for two reasons. One, because there was a very interesting thread on a forum. Scott Thornberry, I think his name is. I will post a link at my blog, the Linguist on Language blog, so you can go there and join this discussion about Krashen, Stephen Krashen. Let me say that I think that his work and the influence that he's had is extremely significant. There's some discussion on this thread in this forum, the one that I'm referring to and that I'm going to post a link to at my blog. Some suggestion that his influence has been, exaggerated, or that there's been too much reference to him and so forth. And I believe that there's not enough. There's nowhere near enough. The vast majority of teachers of teaching institutions that I have come across do not apply his principles, even though a reference to his principles apparently is a staple in what people learn at language teaching institutions around the world. So people are not using his principles effectively, in my view. And so he is a great person, a great man in terms of how he has described what goes on in language learning and the research that he has done, which I haven't done. I mean, I'm just an amateur in all of this. Yet there are areas, as I've said before, where I disagree, and I just want to mention a few of his sort of the aspects of his theory of language acquisition and how I think it relates, at least in my experience. One of his theories is that, and I'll get this all wrong, but you can search for him on the internet and draw your own conclusions. But he talks about, first of all, that if we spend too much time on grammar, that becomes, it's sort of like a monitor. And if we have to go through this monitor all the time, we won't be able to speak naturally, and I certainly agree. That the rules are just there to kind of make us more attentive, but if we try to remember the language via rules, if we try to think through the rules each time we want to speak, we won't get very far. And as I've said before, I'm quite happy to have things in a text remain uncertain to me. I won't go and search the grammar rule, I'll just soldier on. So I think his monitor theory, in other words, as I understand it, in other words, don't become too reliant on grammar, or you'll always have to go to this monitor every time you want to say something or understand something. He talks about affective filters, like feelings that we have that prevent us from learning, and that is certainly true. And I've talked about this as a major issue for adults who are afraid to sound childish, who are otherwise inhibited and prevented from just communicating and taking the language in the way children do. So I would agree with him there. He talks about, and others do as well, there's reference to Vysotsky, I think his name is, famous Russian writer on education, this whole idea that we want that proximate level, that I+1, that to the extent that we are in just that next level of difficulty, we are going to do well in our learning. I think even the whole flow theory refers to that, and I won't even try to pronounce the name of this Hungarian writer who wrote about flow. In other words, if you are in a situation where whatever you're attempting to do is just a little difficult for you and you are able to do it, you have a great sense of satisfaction and achievement, you are in a powerful, motivated learning mood. The only thing I would say to that is that, to me, if we are input-based language learners, then the selection of what to use as content, to my mind, it's more motivating and therefore better for me to have content that is interesting rather than just to have content that's just a little bit difficult. So I have a very boring text that's just a little bit difficult, but it's of no interest to me, that doesn't do me much good. And particularly nowadays, that we don't have to rely on a conventional book with a conventional dictionary. We can read on the internet, we can hear the audio, we can learn words and phrases, retain them and view them. All these other tools make it possible to take on content that is at not I+1 but I+5 if we are motivated to learn and to fight our way through that content. So to that extent I disagree there. He also talks about the natural order, that there is a natural order with which we will learn grammar, so that you can't learn something until you are ready to learn it, that there is a natural order. I have no idea whether this is true or not, but I do know that it is not because a teacher teaches something or because you deliberately study something that you're going to learn it. When a grammar pattern clicks in and starts to feel natural is not something that we control. And that is another reason why I don't mind not understanding, not getting certain language patterns. And that's another reason why I think it's not a good idea to test people based on grammar patterns that have been taught. The fact that it has been taught doesn't mean that it's going to be learned. It'll click in at some point in the future. Now, if you go to the website, the reference to Krashen's work, you'll notice that a lot of the discussion refers to what happens in a classroom. And since I believe that learning takes place primarily outside the classroom, that the classroom is there only to stimulate the learner, to get them turned on to learning, I suddenly began to realize that really there's sort of two kinds of learning. There's the feedlot, if we think of cattle. There's the feedlot learning, where a bunch of cattle are penned in a small area, and the rancher feeds them whatever he wants to feed them. And they stand in one spot and munch on it, more or less. Whereas the grazing model is that the cattle or the sheep or whatever they are, they wander all over the place. And they don't stand in one spot and eat the grass until it's bare. Although I've never been a cow, so I don't know. But they seem to, the image at least is that they're wandering around the hillside, munching some there, munching some here. Then they wander back to the same spot again and munch some more. And that's kind of the image, to me, of learning. We do a little bit of here. We don't want to. And this is, I think, the biggest problem that inexperienced learners have is that they want to nail things down. They want to eat that grass right down to the roots. They want to try to master this lesson, master this vocabulary, master this grammar. And it is a futile exercise. It's extremely wasteful of your time and energy, and it leads to frustration. It's better, you're better to go and I'll often recommend to beginners, buy 3 beginner books and go through essentially the same kind of content from 3 different approaches. Or, if you're at link, take lots of different beginner content. Don't necessarily just stay with one. Graze around and cover the same thing in different ways, and go back over things. I mean, I have been at Russian for 3 years. I take great delight in going back to my beginner books and trying now and I'm reminding myself of things that I've learned and forgotten. Even though I'm quite capable of understanding quite difficult stuff, I know I'm going to make mistakes on very simple things. And so I'm able to go back. So, I think that I'm a grazer. I'm out exploring, deciding what I want to munch on, wandering the hillside, not worrying about what I leave behind. I'm not a feedlot learner, penned in, waiting for the rancher to give me my oats or my hay or whatever he's decided to feed me, or antibiotics or steroids or whatever he's going to feed me. So I think a lot of the discussion about even some of the things that are on that thread, affective filters, things that happen in a classroom, it's quite different if we're out grazing. So there you have it. It's again, further discussion on Krashen. I recommend that you visit this thread, get into this discussion about Stephen Krashen, the tremendous influence that he has had, and that he is now applying to the whole issue of literacy in the United States, where again he's appealing for a more natural and a pleasurable approach to improving literacy rather than the overteaching that the established teaching institutions seem to want to impose, overteaching, overtesting, which is only going to discourage people from reading. So, thank you for listening.